important to normalize the idea that you didn't sign up for this. I feel like a lot of people have been saying, you know, nurses and healthcare workers, you know, they know what they're
This is what you signed up for. I can't tell you how many times we've heard that I mean, I've only been an RN for 2 years, but I've heard that like a lot, even in nursing school. Like, this is what you're signing up for when you deal with disrespect or abuse, physically, mentally. Like, I mean, I've had patients kick me before and had to, like, all kinds of stuff. And it's just like, that's always the response. And I think for this specific situation, it's so important to do what you're doing and to stress, just like, it's not your fault. You don't deserve this.
Welcome to the Tea on Live. On this show, we sip tea and we talk about things. I'm Jazmin, Kylene, and we're hosting this through Well World TV, which is a modern TV network sharing educational and inspirational content. So very fitting. We're going live every Sunday at noon on Facebook. Be sure to like and follow their page and check out my YouTube afterwards at Jazmin. Today's interview and today's conversation is probably one of the most important ones I've done so far, I would say. And I've been looking so forward to it. So I'm here today with Rhea Brown, who's an RN, and I'm gonna let you introduce yourself because you have so many like loops on your belt.
I know, thank you. I'm Rhea Brown. I am a registered nurse at Memorial Hospital West. I work on the oncology unit, primarily dealing with blood cancers. And I have a son. I'm a single parent, and I own a business. I own Real Cosmetics. I'm the CEO. So I've been affected on all fronts by COVID-19, and you know, I'm really appreciative to you, Jazmin, for allowing me to have the voice, and some of my peers as well. So thank you.
Oh, of course. And I mean, I feel like you're doing so much already in your work that the fact that you also want to offer your voice is incredible. Let me make sure that this is recording as well. Okay, perfect. But basically, so many nurses have been speaking out, and you've been seeing a lot of stories on the news, and it's been incredible. But I think what conversation hasn't been had yet is how healthcare workers and nurses at the front lines are taking care of themselves mentally. I think it's a huge portion of what's going on right now that definitely needs to have a light shone on, because at this point, things are kind of completely out of everyone's hands. And I strive to keep this as positive as possible, but I also want to just forewarn that in order to really give the raw and authentic view of what's going on, we're going to have to talk about the nitty-gritty, and that's fine with me.
Of course.
That's how you make change, right? So
yeah.
You've been kind enough to reach out to so many of your coworkers and so many people that you know in the field and let me know what they've been experiencing. And so I took some notes on them. At the end of this interview, I'm going to throw in some clips that people send in and screenshots of what people had to say. But overall, when you ask them what they've been doing to just sort of feel some sense of normalcy and take care of themselves, someone adopted a puppy, which I live for.
I know. I was like, oh my gosh, I want to adopt a turtle, but it's like, where am I going to get a turtle, right now at this time? So I was like, that's such a great way to cope, to think of a rescue animal when you're going through all of this. It's such a selfless thing. And I mean, shout out to Megan for that one, because
absolutely, yeah, they kind of save you when you rescue them. It's a whole thing.
I know.
Someone mentioned taking dark showers, journaling,
yes,
time with their children, FaceTiming their loved ones.
With the children.
I know, that's the whole thing we'll get into too. A lot of prayer. A lot of people have been relying on prayer.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Managing the time that they're spending on social media and watching the news. A lot of like face masks and bubble baths, which I love.
Yes.
Wine, honey, walks.
We're having a wine night tonight, so trust me.
Oh yeah, exactly.
Some of my peers.
That's amazing. And also telehealth, which is like a way to be contacted
right.
with a therapist. I think that's huge, and I'm really glad you guys are taking care of yourselves in that way as well. Animal Crossing.
I know. I haven't given into the hype yet. I already gave into the hype for Tiger King, and that was just, I felt like my brain cells were dying with every single episode. And honestly, it kind of helped. Like, it was just so funny and unique and different. And the memes, I'm so sorry, but memes like saved my life during this whole thing, because when I'm like bored and like, when you come out of a patient's room, like after literally just holding their hand or talking to them and, obviously working with cancer patients, I'm not used to seeing people die, but I've lost patients. And I think that just being able to do a quick laugh about something lighthearted. So, thank you to people who make really good memes. So
I want to do a whole episode just on memes because it's so insane that our generation.
they're such a unique part of culture that's now like becoming so global, and like as other cultures are adopting it to see their memes, it's really funny too. So that definitely helps.
And just humor and in general has really helped. Totally.
Of course.
And also, lastly, someone said placing their phone on do not disturb, which is
of course, especially for night shift. I mean, like, oh my gosh, because people call all the time for everything, and that's such a great tool to have. I mean, now having the kids at home, it's like,
right, totally. So that's basically just sort of like a lump sum of what they've been doing to help take care of themselves. And we're going to get into like your experience and more. But the reality of it is that, you know, when you ask what they've been experiencing and what they're, you know, taking care of. I mean, most said that they're still really apprehensive and anxious before a shift, before going into work. Don't feel adequately taken care of. They fear bringing it home to their families. Or, if they can even recover from the psychological effects and just like the looming doom of knowing that you're going to be facing.
Of course, it's on every front. It's when you leave your house. It's when you come home. It's when you're at work, when you're going into the room. And I want to really highlight the point that keep in mind these patients in the hospitals don't have their families.
Right.
So the patience that we have had to give to them, to our patients, to remember that they are alone and they don't have anybody else but us. Like, we are it for them. As far as like, you know, that interaction of the patients who do test positive, the goal is to minimize interaction with them, which is like, can you imagine like feeling I have this virus that everybody's talking about, and by myself, I can only talk to my family on video chat, and then also like possibly could kill me. Like it's terrifying for them. And so like, you know, I think that people, of course, it's a lot. And, you know, then seeing that and then going home to your family and like, you know, and they're scared of you. It's terrifying. I feel for them, really.
Absolutely. Especially just them being scared of you, like you said. I mean, we'll get into that as well.
I know.
You had someone mention, you know, that they were hyperventilating because they're not able to properly breathe through their masks.
Oh, of course.
Oh my gosh, insane.
Or even sweating, like the PPE, the material that it's made of, it's plastic. So like, I mean, and there's like such a shortage on it that like it only covers the front. The PPE, because we're used to obviously dealing with, you know, virulence and all kinds of bacteria and crazy things, but this is just so unique in like how it spread and all of the hype with it. And, you know, we use like a plastic covering on the back because there is no back really, but you're dealing with something that's just so easily spread that you have to like makeshift. Like people have gotten so creative with what they can protect themselves. And, you know, I hate to say it, but the CDC is not really putting accurate regulations out for what we need across the board for every facility to keep us safe. I mean, they're going back and forth on the type of mask you should have. And I know everybody's cloth masks, but if it doesn't have a filter in that cloth mask, it's like, you know, how much is that going to help? Because for you, but you're also protecting people by wearing it. So it makes a difference. But, you know, there's such a shortage of even just masks. And that's like such an important part of protecting yourself and others.
Huge part, which I mean, the public has just found out because we were getting so many mixed messages.
Of course.
Imagine how that could have been for you guys.
I don't know if I should even say this, but I remember when this first started and people, even family members of some of our patients, you know, people, just visitors in general will come on our floor because since we are an oncology unit, our patients are on reverse precautions, which means that they are so high risk for infection that they are the ones in the negative pressure room so that, you know, they don't get sick from other people. And so we have masks lined along the hallways with PPE, like with gowns, and people came and took them. So now for us as healthcare workers, yes, like they cleaned it all out, like and I couldn't believe that, you know, and even hand sanitizer, people would come with plastic bottles and go and just take hand sanitizer, and we're running out of hand sanitizer. So it's like, this is where people come when they are sick, and you're going to take from the people who are going to be protecting you and your loved ones. And it's like, I really hope that, you know, I hate to say it, but, you know, if you were one of those people, or just please, like, don't do that ever again. Because
totally. Yeah, people just, when they go into survival mode, I think they get so selfish.
Of course. I understand the panic. And even on Amazon, it's like hard to, which is such like a mainstream thing now. It's like, you can't even buy masks on Amazon, which is crazy because of how many, you know,
I know, absolutely. It's insane. And so I'm really excited to hear more about what you've seen. But lastly, what I've gathered from what you sent me, people were getting kicked out by their families because they were.
Oh my gosh. I've heard that a lot. I've definitely heard that a lot. One of my friends is a travel nurse, and she was stationed in Denver. And so when you're a travel nurse, you either can pick a place or like you can stay like for cheaper. It's cheaper to stay with like a family or like people like in an adjacent, room, like an Airbnb sort of. And they didn't want her to come back home. Can you imagine like being a new nurse in a new facility there to help, because there was already a nursing shortage to begin with. I don't know if everybody knows that, but there was already such a huge shortage to begin with. So travel nursing has become a really big thing now. And now for her, they told her, like she not to come back. And it's kind of like, or like not to come back in the house, or like they're scared of her. Like, can you imagine? Like, you don't even have your family around. So like for travel nurses, that's like a whole thing for them too.
Right, absolutely.
Away from their families.
And that has a huge impact on where you are mentally, because if your family
exactly isolated physically from the people you love, mentally, like just going to work and coming home, and then it's cold there, so it's like, what can you do? You can't even go outside.
I couldn't even, and I truly couldn't. But the last two that really stuck with me were, you had a friend who did everything that she could in order to really pacify and take care of herself mentally, and she still, without even putting in her 2 weeks, she submitted her resignation.
I know, and that was in New Orleans, and actually that's a really close person to me, and she just, I couldn't believe it. Like, I wasn't expecting that response, and that was the first time I heard it from her, that she messaged me and told me that she had, put in her 2 weeks, and that's when it really hit me, like just how many people are impacted by this. And I think that that's really important to the people who have, resigned. Don't feel like you're a coward. You have been brave for so long, and with everything that's going on, you cannot help people if you yourself are not in the mental and physical position to do so. And it bothers me so much that people feel guilty for not being able to provide and to put themselves out there for others. Like, if you're in like one of those hot places, like, New Orleans, they were already, I'm sorry, their healthcare systems were already kind of before because of funding, and now it's like, I think of the populations that are going to be in and out of the hospital getting it, transient populations, and you're dealing with difficult people. So
right. And you bring up a huge point that I was really excited to say, which is that to anyone who feels guilty, or to anyone who feels, just inadequately equipped to deal with this, it's important to normalize the idea that you didn't sign up for this. I feel like a lot of people have been saying, nurses and healthcare workers, they know what they're
This is what you signed up for. I can't tell you how many times we've heard that I've only been an RN for 2 years, but I've heard that like a lot, even in nursing school. Like, this is what you're signing up for when you deal with disrespect or abuse, physically, mentally. Like, I've had patients kick me before and had to, like, all kinds of stuff. And it's just like, that's always the response. And I think for this specific situation, it's so important to do what you're doing and to stress, just like, it's not your fault. You don't deserve this.
No human is equipped to deal with something like this. This is way out of what anyone could have studied. You know what I'm saying? And
of course. And then when you become a nurse to help people. Like, nobody becomes a nurse to watch somebody die from behind a window, behind a mask and a face shield where they can't even see you smiling, or, like, can you imagine not seeing anybody smile for that long, for weeks, because you're in the hospital? That's how that impacts you. Or it's a lot on both sides, and nobody signs up to be that person. Like,
so if you feel like you do it, and my thing is that we're obviously saying that you guys are heroes because you are. That's just the only way to say it. But I think also with the term heroes comes a sense of, like, that means you're invincible, and that means you're completely.
That's such a good point. Wow.
That's not the case. So you can be a hero, you are a hero, but also you can feel weak, you can feel inadequate, you can feel like you can't do this, and you can take care of yourself and prioritize yourself.
So, of course.
Huge. And so we're going to get into your questions, but lastly, the last thing that really rocked me was that another young CNA that you knew of someone who knew of someone committed suicide, because it can get to that point. That's just mental health in general,
Of course. Seeing that, I'm so sorry to say it, but it was, I kind of saw that this was going to be that final last step for some people, and it breaks my heart in a whole new way. Suicide has impacted me kind of recently with the loss of a friend a few months ago, and the way that it hit and how many people that it hit, it was devastating. And now, like, that was the first time, my first experience, like, dealing with that. And, now with something like this that's so broad, so you kind of realize, like, you don't know how strong people really are. And it's not even a measure of strength. It's like where they're at that moment, because we're not strong all the time. It could be just that right moment where you're just everything else and then that one thing. And that's what I feel like. This is that one thing for so many people. And my heart goes out to people, their families who are dealing with this. And, you know, God, that's just, that's a whole nother one right there.
Absolutely, totally. And so hopefully with this conversation, we can let people A, feel seen, and B, maybe give some tips and some tricks on how you can
exactly
health and,
of course,
you know, take care of yourself in the best possible way given the circumstances. Because at the end of the day, this just is something that is otherworldly. So first and foremost, okay, well, before we get to the first one, this is so much preface, but I do want to say that my content, I definitely strive to speak to millennials and people of our generation, and I do want to note that so many people on the front line are young, are
that's true,
out of school, like this
it's
is
true
experience. So this is why this is really important that, you know, someone, it's maybe a bit different than someone who's more seasoned, not that they're any more equipped.
That's true too.
But, you know, a lot of these people are young. So what are you doing when you get back home? How do you separate work from your life?
I guess it starts with the car for me. My car is like the first quiet place to get to when you leave the hospital, really.
Mm-hmm.
So I sometimes, like, if it's a really bad day, that's my place, like, to cry. And I mean, crying isn't always a bad thing. Sometimes I just allocate a couple minutes if it was a really hard shift or if I lost a patient, and I cry for a couple minutes and I feel so much better. And then now, you know, that was my ritual before. Now, like with COVID, just being very conscientious, not bringing my shoes in the car, having Lysol in the car, having my mask on at all times, making sure that whoever I'm around, that, you know, like, I'm not too close to them. And I just I undress in the garage. I'm sure people do it in the backyard as well. And I take my shoes off in the garage. I Lysol them down, and then I wash my clothes in hot water. And detergent, and that's like that whole process. Like, I'm kind of not thinking about anything. Like the silence in the car, the absence of, you know, the quiet in the house when I get home. It's quiet. It's nice, and I love that. It's nice to come home to an empty house, but then you have a child, so
right. And
when
so
Ty's awake,
because there are a lot of nurses right now who are also mothers.
oh my gosh,
more so single mothers. So how have you been able to juggle that?
that has been really difficult because the schools are closed, and my heart really goes out to teachers right now, because I mean, Ty's kind of young, so he doesn't have a teacher, but for teachers who are still putting in every single effort to keep their children engaged, because people are missing standardized testing, lots of things that are going to affect them for many months to come. And, you know, for me, like working night shift, I don't have access to people helping me as much with Ty when I work nights. It's very difficult to find care at nights, and I'm so thankful to work for a facility that offers childcare services, like between certain hours, but it's for day shift. So luckily, like, I have my best friend who's able to stay with me, so I don't have to be begging people, like, not people, but my family, to watch Ty for me. But it's been so difficult. And his dad works, but his dad helps, you know, and keeps him like half the time whenever he can if he doesn't work. So that's been difficult, but you know, the time is nice too, the quality time.
Right.
It's the only good thing.
Right. Have you served at all as like some sort of just, I don't know, like an escape from?
Of course. I think lots of families, like, and especially like in the culture we have here in the United States, like, it's just work, 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 school, school, school. You know, it's very, so to get this deep breath of fresh air and like this break, I'm sure for a lot of families is kind of nice, because all the things you didn't get to do together, now you can kind of do together. And that's what I've been doing with Ty. So it's nice. It's just he misses his friends. And then it's like, not that we are just, you know, we're not just stuck at home. At least we're safe at home. So I'm thankful to have a home where he feels safe and I can have that time with him.
Do you feel like you're able to separate work from when you are at home? Or do you feel like it's always kind of in the back of your head?
Oh, it creeps up. Like, honestly, on my days off, I'm pretty good. But then because I do a lot of self-care, it's my issue is the night before, the morning before a shift, or knowing I'm going to be working a long stretch, because I'm pretty good at like working long stretches. I'm okay, like working 4 or 5 nights in a row and I'll be fine. Or I was before, but now, like, knowing every time I walk into that hospital, I could possibly be bringing something home to my 4-year-old, or even working in a business, like I'm running my business, I'm so careful. And I was already had to be really sterile in the environment in which I make things, but now I'm just hyper vigilant, shipping orders, I do contactless pickups, so you never see me, and the bags are all clean and sanitized. It's just, I would be terrified to ever expose anybody to that. And it kind of makes me a little paranoid. I'm not going to lie. It hurts. Like it would, I feel like I wouldn't know how to handle it. Because when you, like I said, you sign up to be a healthcare provider to help people, the last thing you would ever want to do is to get somebody else sick.
Absolutely. And that's awful that you have to worry about that. Absolutely. What does self-care look like for you? What do you like? What's your, what's helping you?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
What does self-care look like for you right now?
Oh, it's so long. I just love doing long, extravagant routines for like no reason. Like I don't know if I'm sure you watched some of my stuff on my Instagram stories, but like I will layer masks so thick. And like I fixed the mic on my karaoke machine, so I sing karaoke. I have a horrible voice. I sing in the shower, lots of candles, lots of wax melts, lots of body scrubbing and exfoliating. I'm sorry, like I feel so good after exfoliating because my skin is soft and I'm like glowing. And I don't want to say when you look good, you feel good, but when you make the effort to put in that time to make yourself like, to bring yourself to a level up from where you were physically, if you feel a little bit better inside. So like I do all that stuff, but I also have access to that stuff since I make it. So for people that don't, grab some salt, pour some olive oil, scrub it on yourself. That's the best thing I can say, like if you don't have anything right now, but it helps. Like it makes, just even say, I'm going to focus on me for 2 minutes and just do this one thing or two things for myself. Cup of tea, like anything like that, to just think of yourself.
Totally. Even the act of like knowing that this is solely for me and this is solely
yes. I think
it's
doing things with purpose, and I have learned this in making my products because I have seen it where, or even at the hospital, like when I'm working with someone, when something becomes routine, I find that it's not as impactful. I find the product doesn't come out as good. I find that the person is not as receptive to my care. But when you are thinking about, and I learning through doing that for other people, I've since started to do that for myself, where I'm like, I'm going to think about Rhea and what Rhea needs right now, and I'm going to focus on helping her to get there. And that's the best way to do it for me, to be purposeful and intentful in what you're doing, and not just to absent-minded, like, oh, I'm just gonna make this cup of tea and all right, no sugar, health, tastes kind of bad, but whatever. But no, I'm doing this because the warmth and like feeling it get all the way to your toes, like the perfect cup of tea. That's awesome. It's priceless.
That's beautiful. I would totally encourage anyone watching this to just have intention, like you said, be intentional with what it is that you're doing for yourself. And it can look different every day. If one day
of course,
maybe you need music, like just submit to that.
Of course.
How much of social media and the news are you allowing yourself to consume? Are you monitoring it at all?
I used to be on Facebook a lot, and I still go on Instagram a lot, but and I used to watch the news, but I find that nobody really knows what's going on. Even our our governments, our health regulation bodies, they are a little at a loss, and honestly, they're not on the front lines. And I learned that a long time ago in nursing school. What you learn in the book is not what you do in real life, because you're dealing with a person. You're not dealing with a scenario in a book. So they're just so far detached, both of them, that I feel like whatever they put into place, like it's going to take months or weeks to implement anyway. Like I'll see what I need to see at work, and because they're the ones that are going to be updating us with how many positive cases we have every day, what we're doing about it, where's the PPE coming from, like how soon we can expect to get the resources needed. And that's the information I need to function, because everything else is just noise in our ears, and I think it's at this point.
Yeah.
But I'm here for the memes. I'm sorry. I love the COVID memes. Everybody sends them to me. And to make lighthearted of a situation so serious, I know not everybody is into satire like that, but I love it. It's impactful for me.
Butterfly, and I was like, is this COVID?
Yes, it's true. And then someone's like, let me fix this for you. And she blurted out, she's like, it's everything. Because it's true. There's so many symptoms that it could be. And then I was going to get into this later, but I'll just mention now, you can edit it out if you want to, but that being a silent carrier is something that is not being enforced as a big issue. And as healthcare providers, we are probably, and I heard this from the rescue nurse, one of the rescue nurses at our floor, and the rescue nurse in a hospital is the one who's going to go into that room and that patient with COVID codes, who is that person who goes to every single event of decompensation that they have. So she has had a lot of experience on the front lines. And she was telling me her biggest fear is to transmit it to someone because she's a silent carrier, and we are not able to get testing. If you're not symptomatic, you can't get tests.
Right.
How does that make sense when you've had people testing positive around you on your floor, your patients, even before, because they'll be negative. And then, I don't know if anybody knows, but when you get that swab done, it has to be done it has to be done far down, and people are just kind of doing it superficially because not everybody was taught. And when you suddenly get an influx of nurses and you say, hey, do this test, and you don't even give them the time to show them how to do it, what do you expect? False negatives. So, and we've had that, and it's like terrifying to me. And I hope that they'll get the resources soon, because why are we testing tires in New York when we're not getting tested as human beings, you know, taking care of these people? It's very unfortunate that
Absolutely.
that's what's happening.
And why do you think there isn't adequate care for the people on the front line? Why do you think that is?
I know allocation is an issue. There's such a disparity. There was already such a disparity to begin with the resources as far as healthcare. I'm very blessed to work in a hospital that is pretty well funded. And we're all about innovation. And, you know, I think that helps for me, but I cannot imagine what it must feel like to be a nurse who was in a facility that wasn't prepared to begin with. And it's just, I guess because, like I said, they're not on the front lines. If you don't know a nurse or a doctor or a healthcare provider in general, you're not going to think from the perspective of somebody who loves that person.
Right.
So you're not going to think, it's not going to be like, if it's not in front of your face, and that's unfortunately just how some people are, it's not going to be an issue for you. If you're not going to like see them gowning up and gowning down, and if you don't think, oh my gosh, if they don't have that, they're going to get exposed. If they don't have that face shield, someone coughs in their face. Or, you know, when someone is ventilating, and the issue is when you suction and you're pushing that air down like or out, like it goes into the air and the spores are in the air. And it's like, if we don't have enough of what we need, then what do you expect? Of course, everybody is going to continue to transmit it. So I guess it's just a lack of awareness.
A lack of awareness, totally. And so moving forward, how do you think that, well, our Medicare system is so flawed already, but what do you think that we can do better at moving forward?
I would just love, I've already kind of seen it. I know that on the news, like I saw clips online that there are other, you know, professions like dentistry that have been donating masks and stuff that they're not using since their practices aren't open to hospitals and to, you know, facilities, you know, taking care of these patients. And I think that seeing more of that generosity is so impactful, not just physically, but like what it means. Like, as you know, like imagine like being like, you know, we don't have these resources, we can't get them. And then also we get them from other places that may have that virus too. So not having things sourced here in America is a big issue, because who do we trust? What resources do we trust? Maybe that's a part of also the delay, because they have to, I'm sure, make sure that and test the masks or whatever, you know, things that we need, the PPE, that it's coming from a place that, you know, is reputable. So I hope going forward that we get more of those, you know, good resources that can donate those things. It would be helpful.
Yeah, and I hope that moving forward, even after this whole entire situation, that healthcare workers and nurses and doctors and everyone is like put more on a pedestal. I think you guys
of course
have like faces.
I already paid off my student loans, but for everybody else, please, like, I'm sorry, but they deserve it. They deserve to have like all of their loans paid off after this. This is crazy.
That and more. And so
and more
coming up. Let's just hope.
I think they're working on a bill right now to like put into place for hazardous pay. But I'm so sorry to have to say this, but I think everybody in the healthcare setting should get hazardous pay, because the environmental services and the people who clean those rooms after somebody either is discharged or passes on, they are also getting exposed. The spores stay in the air for hours, and you're telling me like only, you know, they're frontline workers too. They're there, they show up, they clean, they make that room safe for the next person. And I'm all healthcare workers, all people at the grocery store, because you have people coming in state of emergency. Everyone who has to work, I feel, should get hazardous pay.
100%. I'm 100% behind that. Totally. And I really hope that maybe a conversation like this will help people, I don't know, fight for that. Totally. How can the public support our healthcare workers? Because I think we just kind of want to do what we can.
Of course, stay home. Staying home as much as you can. I know it's difficult, and I was off for a couple of weeks before all of this happened, and staying home was so difficult during the beginning of the quarantine. Like, I feel for you guys, believe me. And I was bored, and I didn't take it as seriously as I should have. And I hung out with like nursing friends, because I'm like, whatever, we're all going to be exposed anyway. Kind of cynical, but in all seriousness, I really feel that you guys can just stay home, and to not take resources that you don't need. If you don't need several rolls of toilet paper, don't take it. Or especially hand sanitizer. Like, I know everybody's buying hand sanitizer right now, and I even make hand sanitizer, and I just want to say, like, please wash your hands. Like, I know it takes a little longer and it's convenient, but if we don't have hand sanitizer in hospitals where we're taking care of those patients, kind of maybe leave some of those resources for healthcare workers, because we have to work so fast to save people that sanitizing in between is more important than you not feeling like washing your hands. it's a hard statement to make, but you know, I think that would help.
I think that would be huge. Yeah, absolutely. And I think I also want to add to that, just for the public to have more compassion and to not.
Oh my gosh, that
Yeah.
goes without saying. Some patients, like I would never go to like I don't think any healthcare provider would ever go to like a grocery store or anything after a shift. I sincerely hope that they wouldn't. But if they, you know, if they're in scrubs, you don't know if they're coming or going. So don't assume that because I'm in scrubs, especially because I work night shifts. So if I go at like 5 p.m. in scrubs and I'm just picking up something to eat, I don't feel like I should be targeted or looked at differently. I mean, I know it's hard to have that trust that every person is going to be that conscientious, but I wouldn't take it so far as to judge that person, because you don't know.
Absolutely, you don't know. That's huge. Anyone who would look a certain way is just so it's going over their head totally. And also to just, like we mentioned earlier, not do the comments of like, well, you signed up for this, or just sort of expect.
Oh, for sure. When I come home and I start to like open the garage to undress, like my neighbors, if they're out, they look at me and it's like they know I'm a nurse. And I mean, even the other day, Ty was like playing outside, like right here on the sidewalk with his fire truck, and like I could kind of see like, and I don't know if it's because I'm a nurse, probably not, but like, you know, the mom was like, okay, like if another parent was walking by with them, I was like, you know, just like kind of like not even wanting to say hi, and I'm just like, okay, well, I'm not that friendly anyway, but I'm kidding, but still, like, you know,
I 100% agree. Crazy. And so circling back to mental health and stuff, what advice could you give to healthcare workers and to nurses who are sort of in the first like leg of their career in this, who are fresh out, who haven't really had much experience and are now dealing with this?
I remember just becoming a new nurse, and I didn't feel like a nurse, a real nurse, until probably 9-10 months in. And I remember, like, as a joke, like when I didn't know something, I would call senior nurses and like, hey, I need a real nurse. It was for something I needed help with. And I still do that sometimes as a joke. But I mean, when you're that person who's getting called, it kind of like hits you like, oh crap. And I know like it's really hard to not be that person right now, but you already are. You're cultivating the skills that you need, and they're going to change somebody's life. I think it's important to remember, thinking intentfully, that what you're struggling with right now is going to become a lesson for you that is going to help you to figure out your flow. And I think it's so important because it's easy to get eaten by older nurses or more seasoned nurses and to feel small. And I used to feel that way sometimes coming into work. And I mean, especially going on with all the panic right now, just remember you're still a hero. Even if you're not on the front lines, you're still a hero, because all the nurses that are supporting, you know, those COVID units, we support each other. You know, we take the patients that they can't take. We take the rule outs that they can't take. We love you guys so much for what you're doing. And I just hope that, you know that whether you're a new nurse or a seasoned nurse, that it makes such a big difference. Like even to me.
No matter what you're feeling too, if you're feeling heroic or if you're feeling like,
oh yeah, I don't feel like a hero. I definitely don't. When I go to work, like I'm so scared. I'm so scared sometimes, and I can kind of see it in the faces. Like when we do something called huddle, and that's we do ours at like 3 o'clock in the morning since I work night shift, and we discuss like what changes, what policy changes, and some of the policy changes I wanted to talk to you about were in regards to how we respond when somebody goes down. It's called a code blue, and that's when somebody goes into cardiac or respiratory distress. And before the protocol is you go in the room, you bring the crash cart, you do CPR, you know, defibrillate them if you need to. And I remember on one of my first shifts back when we did huddle, and they said, we're not allowed to go in the rooms anymore for COVID patients, that if they go down, we can't go in. We have to wait for the rescue team to come because they have the PAPRs, they have the equipment to go in. And my knees buckled a little bit because, like I said, when you sign up for this, you don't think, okay, well, I'm going to stand outside of a door, know somebody needs me, and to just, you know, so especially as a new nurse, you're fresh out of nursing school and they hammer that thing into your head like you're going to be, you know, jump on that chest and do those things that you need to save somebody. And then the family's not there either. So when you're the only person, really, not the only, but the main person responsible for advocating for that person, especially as a new nurse, and you haven't even gotten your pacing, it's like, just take a deep breath. It hasn't happened to me yet. I'm already having anxiety about it because I don't really take that well, like not doing something, but that is doing something because you're protecting yourself. You're protecting your other patients. And unfortunately, I think that's probably part of the reason why so many people have been dying, is not just because of a lack of resources, but, you know, the extra time it takes to put on that equipment so that we can go in the room safely. it's hard, and it's hard to explain that to families, because I'm sure on their side they're like, why couldn't you get there in time, or why couldn't more have been done? And it's, nobody's having it easy right now.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. You guys need to
a
be
deep breath.
absolutely. Yeah, I know that you're still feeling fear, and that there's things that are out of your hands, and that you got into this because you want to help and you want to save lives. When you don't have access to that, that's hard on you. Absolutely.
Exactly. It
Um,
is.
and what you mentioned a couple times, I think, is so important, is the fact that you guys are supporting each other and you guys
Yes.
bonding. So can you talk a little bit about that, maybe how that's been?
I have spent more time with my peers, other nurses, in the last couple of weeks than I have in the last 2 years that I've been a nurse. And it is so nice to be able to talk about this with each other. And I think it's so important not to isolate yourself and not to feel isolated, because I don't think, I used to feel embarrassed to share certain sentiments, like, when I didn't know what to do, or like being scared in a situation at work. And when I talk to my peers about it, it helps, because you realize not everybody's as strong as they look.
Right.
And, even though nurses are newer, I'm shocked by what I learned from what I have learned from even newer nurses, because they're so innovative. And I'm still a pretty new nurse myself. And I just, I love it. I mean, even tonight, I'm going to hang out with some of my friends from work. And I told them they have to, undress in the garage and like shower and stuff. So that's going to be there for when they get here. So we're going to be safe. But I think it's important, especially after work, to just let that all go. Like, I wouldn't have a delay between your time of like finishing work and then coping. Like, I think that it should be as quick of a transition between, finishing and just doing that last hand wash, going home, and getting emotionally, physically, psychologically just detoxed from all of that. And being with somebody who's doing like the same thing, like in my head, I'm like imagining us just like doing it all together, like letting all of that go. It's nice. And we're going to do masks and music and maybe karaoke if we get, a little tipsy. I don't know, but
there's
it's safe to say thoughts.
sense of unity within you guys that
Yes, I love it.
absolutely,
I love it.
So happy. And I hope
it's the most helpful thing, I think, actually, is because it's so easy to feel singled out, like having everybody, like all of my friends. And I hope that, everybody has that person.
Yeah, absolutely. And I hope that any nurse who watches this maybe has felt alone.
Of course.
Your group, because you guys globally are in this together.
Oh, yeah.
Are there any last sentiments or anything that you want to have workers know, public know?
Man, so many things, but I think that I would just encourage everyone to pay attention, to be conscientious of who they're touching, who they're around, and to just be kind in general. Be kind to each other, be appreciative of each other, because life is such a gift. And when you see people die, like the first time I saw somebody die, I was just like, I remember, like, has it happened yet? Like, it doesn't feel real. And you become so appreciative of the moments you take for granted. So I would actually like to say, just enjoy these moments of quiet, of being at home with your family, of, having them there, because the time could come when they're not. And having those memories is important for coping as well. Because then nobody wants to have regrets. Like, having to say goodbye to a loved one, and I see one on iPad, you don't want to ever have to get to that point. And God, I hope none of you ever have to. But if, you do, at least I think talking about those memories with that person that you had is really helpful.
Absolutely. And on a final note, I'll say, you can't take care of anyone unless you're taking care of yourself. And
Absolutely. Hope that's the message that everyone gets from this. We talked about a lot of really difficult things, and I'm sure that when everybody looks at the feedback from other people, which is especially those frontline workers, I just, I just hope that you feel like good knowing that we're here for you. We're here to support you, that we will be there to save you when the time comes, and that we adore you guys for all of the support that you're giving us. Really, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, honestly. Like,
no, I was excited, and I mean, I hope that this was good for you too, because like I watch so many of your interviews, and I'm just like, oh, this is so cool, and this is so different and impactful, and like, I haven't heard that before, and I watch a lot of TED Talks too, so this is like, I'm excited to see like, how the video turns out. And thank you so much, Jazmin.
Until life goes back to normal, because I'm also gonna do something.
Oh my God.
Your work, which by the way, please plug it now. Where can people get your product?
I'm sorry?
where can people get your products, by the way?
You can shop my products at realcosmetics.com, and I'm always available for any questions 24/7 because I'm almost always awake. So my business number, the business number is my number, and then on the website I get lots of direct messages all the time, and the website is pretty comprehensive. I'm doing a blog too, like to help like with all kinds of details for that. So that's going to come soon, and it should help. But if anybody would like to, support my small business, because that obviously being a small business during this time is really difficult. But a lot of people have knowingly like, oh, well, you know what? I'm going to make sure that I get my products from Rhea, since, even before, like, oh, I just got my stuff from Walmart before. But now, like, to help me. And I just thank you so much for that, for everyone who's done that for me. I really appreciate it. And I would encourage you. Oh, I'm so sorry. I forgot to say this. Like, to do other small businesses, like, please, like, because, when things do go back to normal, at the end of the day, those loans are going to be in place, or like for people still having to pay their rent and their leases for businesses they can't even open. So do as much like support of small businesses as you can. And I've been doing that myself. I used to order food every day, like from, local restaurants, and I shout them out. And I think that's really important to help, because those are families that are getting that money, that income, that are being helped, not like a CEO who really doesn't give a crap about you.
Right. We're lifting each other up through that, which is huge.
Exactly. On all levels.
And they're incredible. So
thank you. Thank you.
But thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to like Well World TV on Facebook and follow them for live interviews every Sunday, and to watch me on YouTube at Jazmin Kylene. And like I said, thank you so much, Rhea. And thank you to everyone. You guys are you are the reason that we're gonna get through this. Really, it's not the government.
Thank you. I think you're right.
Yeah, we told the choice, but
we're just like you. We're all the same. It's just we wear scrubs and you don't. That's really the main difference. We're all human beings, so we're here for it. We're here for it, and we're gonna kill it. We're gonna be fine,
and we're gonna stay home in the meantime. So.
Yes, please stay home.
Thank you.
I'm so terrified of bringing the virus home to my parents, and especially my daughter, who's only 6. I make sure that I don't share any drinks with my daughter. Aaliyah, say hi.
Hi.
I make sure that I don't share any food or drinks or utensils with anyone in my household. And I don't kiss my daughter anymore, except for over a blanket. I'll kiss her arm when I leave her in the morning, or at nighttime when she's sleeping, I'll kiss her over her blanket. I'm very self-aware and conscious of my distance between my parents because they're older. Of course, with this pandemic, it's especially important to practice self-care as a coping mechanism. My self-care routine includes at-home exercising because luckily for me, my sister is a fitness instructor, and I have at-home gym equipment. I mostly include outdoor walks and indulging in nature and embracing in every extra moment I get to spend with my daughter.
Yes.
I believe spending time with family allows us to appreciate the little things in life, which will get everyone through this challenging time.
And everybody will be safe when this coronavirus stops because the kids are brave.
That's right.
I'm here to tell you about my 3 ways how I help to maintain my self-care during these times. 1. Exercise. I had to start up back my exercise routine. It has helped me with my studying tremendously and to keep my sanity, trust me. Secondly, take a lot of study breaks. What I like to do is to watch a lot of YouTube videos, especially untold stories of the ER clippings. I like sit down and watch them to see if I can get the diagnosis correct. And sometimes I like sports, so sometimes I watch a lot of sports videos as well. And lastly, keep up hope, trust in God, read my Bible every day, and I pray. And I try to keep a positive mindset on all of it. At the end of the day, there's the light at the end of the tunnel.